While we've been focusing so much on the election and so much of the stuff that's happening domestically across the United States, there has been some major developments out there. We just saw yesterday a major nuclear test in Russia. Now, they didn't detonate a nuclear weapon, but what they did was they test their primary delivery systems. We're talking about them testing their nuclear triad, sea, land, and air launched missiles. All of them were successful. We need to talk about the hyper modernization happening in the Russian nuclear forces and how far behind the United States is falling. And this is super concerning. While we can't get our act together to build a capsule that can go to the International Space Station with Boeing, these are the same companies, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, all these companies, they are the ones tasked with upkeeping our nuclear missiles. Very concerning. Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade. I am gallivanting around the world in Spain. So in the event of a nuclear war, I'd actually survive. And I don't know about everybody else, but who's going to nuke Spain, right? Anyway, so Russia just tested 3 of its nuclear missile profiles out there. They launched a submarine-based missile. They launched an air-launched missile, a hypersonic missile, and then they also launched an intercontinental ballistic missile from a silo. These new missiles that they're developing are super concerning because they are modern. They're YARS RS-24, which they just launched in the test. They've rolled this out and have replaced a whole bunch of their missile systems with the YARS system. It's actually relatively reliable from what we can tell. And this is different than the Satan II, which they've been having some issues with, though that is also rolled out. And that is a hyper-modern system that has just been rolled out in 2023. Apparently, there's still some kinks in the system, but the YARS system was rolled out in 2007. Compare that to the U.S. Minuteman missile, the Minuteman III. Most of these units are 50 years old. Now, they've been maintained, parts have been replaced, they've been tested. They pulled them out of the silos and test them with scanning and stuff like that. But fundamentally, these are 50-year-old missiles. Things go bad. And how do I know that these things go bad? Well, we know that the Minuteman III is supposed to be retired. In fact, it was already supposed to be retired. So it's still around even though it should have been retired. And why haven't we replaced it? Because the new missile system that's supposed to replace it is behind schedule. This is something that we hear constantly, one time after the next. The LG-35A Sentinel is now scheduled in 2029 to start replacing the Minuteman III missiles. That's a few years from now. The Minuteman missile was already supposed to be replaced, but it's been extended. And they just keep patching it together with duct tape and bubble gum and just kind of keep the system going again. And it's relatively easy to do that for the simple fact that until you absolutely need all the Minuteman missiles, nobody's really there to kind of hold you accountable. I mean, you can just be like, well, that one over in the missile silo over there, oh, it's good. Yeah, it's good. I mean, look at it. It looks cool, doesn't it? As long as it doesn't actually blow up in the silo, who's to say whether it can launch or not? Now, every so often, the United States launches one of these Minuteman missiles. But how much, given how much is riding on those missile launches, if one of those things doesn't succeed, the United States looks really bad, and everyone does start asking questions about the Minuteman missile program. So there is high stakes there, and there's even high enough stakes that maybe we cheat. Maybe we take a Minuteman missile, do a whole bunch of extra scans, maybe even build a missile that looks like a Minuteman missile and launch that instead. I don't know. All of that would be highly, highly classified, of course. So we have the LG-35A Sentinel is going to replace the Minuteman 3s. We're told that the launch success rate, the reliability of the Minuteman 3 is at, quote, acceptable levels. But even in the reports inside the Defense Department, there is this acknowledgement that these missiles are not as reliable as they once were, like, say, 50 years ago. But Russia, I mean, I think that we all can understand that Russian missiles are probably less reliable than the United States. You're more likely to blow up on a Russian rocket heading into space. I mean, just a couple of years ago, one of their Soyuz capsules had to separate propulsively from their rocket with the crew because, there was something wrong with the rocket. And that has happened before with the cargo missions as well. Now, they don't prep the missiles and the rockets as much for the cargo missions, and so those are not human certified, and so they have more issues with them sometimes. But Russia's seen a few of those go up in flames. The United States tries not to have its rockets blow up before they hit the International Space Station. So we kind of get that. Now, they've been, like I said, been having problems with the RS-28, the Satan II missiles. Now, Russia doesn't call them Satan II. NATO calls them Satan IIs. Russia calls them Sarmats. So we have that happening. And why was Russia even testing these things in the first place? And it was meant as a message, because the United States is seriously considering lifting the restrictions on long-range munitions for Ukraine for deep strike missions into Russia. Like I said, the election's happening and everyone's focusing on that. But we are literally on the brink of nuclear war. And I think, and I've said this many times, I think that is World War III not going nuclear, I think is just insane. I think that whenever nations go to war, they will use whatever weapons they have. You go back through the history of mankind, you do not see a country going to war and going, oh, well, we have these weapons, but we shouldn't use those. We should not use those weapons because that would just be too much. We've never seen that in the history of mankind before. We've seen them invent new missiles, new weapons to use in world wars, and to use those to the utmost of their abilities. I think that World War III will go nuclear, and I think it will go. I think that military strategists will realize that it's going to go nuclear, and so then there's this motivation to be the first to go nuclear, to be the first one to use them, so that you can hopefully take out the other guys. And we're walking into the situation where Russia is saying basically that they are going to be boxed in and they're going to be forced to act. If the United States allows Ukraine to use their missiles for deep strikes into Russia, they will consider that there to be an open war between Russia and NATO. And then we have U.S. officials out there saying, well, if there are North Korean troops entering into this war, that's not clearly defined what they mean by entering into this war, because NATO is currently saying that North Korean troops are in direct combat against Ukrainian soldiers inside Russia. So not in Ukraine, but inside Russia, helping to push back the Ukrainian invasion into Russia. Is that in the war? If so, does that mean that Ukraine is now allowed to use the United States missiles for deep strikes into Russia. And does that mean that Russia is now in a state of open war with NATO? Now, if you're this podunk country, admit it, Russia is, okay? It's technologically less advanced. It has less access to computer chips. All of its stuff is just, it's generations behind, okay? It's generations behind. If you're this country that has less money, less technological capability, and you go down the list, less manpower, and you're up against an adversary, and yet you consider yourself to be at war with these people, you really have limited options. And the limited options is surprise attack, insurgency. Insurgency doesn't work very well because these are other countries, right? But, are there sleeper cells inside the United States and across Europe that came over as, migrants or something like that, that are prepared to strike infrastructure targets, that type of thing? That's possible. But really, the surprise attack thing is really what we're looking at here. The United States, our missile systems are old. We've assumed that nuclear war is unthinkable, unwinnable, so therefore no one's insane enough to try it. So therefore, our systems don't have to actually function, they just have to look like they function. Are you following me? And you say, well, Steve, that's not really the case. It's sort of like having gold in the Fort Knox vault. It's not that you actually have to have gold in the Fort Knox vault. It's that you have to make people think you have gold in the Fort Knox vault. If people think that there's gold there, then you get all of the benefit of it actually being there. So aren't you kind of motivated to pretend like it's there, but actually sell it off? Steve, that's crazy. Yeah. How come nobody's actually seen the gold? In decades. Nobody can actually verify independently that the gold actually exists. And in the same way, who's to say if the United States, thousands of missiles, we have 400 Minuteman missiles that are supposed to be ready to launch at any minute. Has that been independently verified whether they're actually ready to actually work and that they actually would function? No. And given the fact that most things in the U.S. military don't work, we look at the repair schedules for Navy ships and we find that there are serious problems. They can't get parts and they're just going to sea without a ship fully functioning. We see aircraft, F-35s, they're grounded way more than they're actually flying or being flight capable. When you start seeing flight mission capable of like 30%, that's truly troubling. Once they're fixed and they're ready to go, they should be able to just sit there and be prepared to go. And that should be an uptime. But in fact, what's happening is that they're being sidelined for so long because they can't get certain parts. So we look at the military and we're like, it doesn't work anywhere else, but we're going to just assume that in the nuclear missile sphere, everything is working flawlessly. The reason why we've never heard of any problems there is because any problems with the nuclear triad is extremely classified. Like, go to jail for the rest of your life if you report anything that would make people question the reliability of the nuclear triad. Yeah, we should definitely not ask any questions whatsoever. So if we're going into war with Russia, and Russia has the initiative because Russia's the one saying that they are recognizing a state of war, whereas the NATO is not recognizing the state of war. When one side realizes they're at war and the other side doesn't, history shows that, that this can be truly devastating. It will cause a massive wake-up call. Now, when the most powerful thing that the Empire of Japan could do was launch a massive attack, aerial bombardment on our Navy ships, Russia and China are capable of so much more right now. China is rapidly expanding its nuclear capabilities. If nuclear war is unthinkable and unwinnable, then why is China rapidly building its nuke force? That's a legitimate question, isn't it? If it's ridiculous and stupid and nobody in their right mind would think that's possible, then why is China building them? They sure seem to think that it's winnable. Why is Russia modernizing and testing its nuclear forces and gaining capacities like underwater drone delivery for nuclear weapons and hypersonic delivery vehicles? Why are they developing these things if it's unwinnable, right? And I know every time I say hypersonic, a bunch of people are going to get all triggered and be like, oh, ballistic missiles are hypersonic. Ballistic missiles are not hypersonic. They travel fast, but they're a different class of missiles than hypersonics. Hypersonics are flat, like a cruise missile. They're harder to detect and they are maneuverable, whereas ballistic missiles go up and you know exactly where they're going to land because everyone can see them go up and they don't have powered descent. They just they're in free fall. They're going to hit where they're going to hit. They're much easier to intercept. Hypersonics are basically uninterceptable, though there's debates on whether U.S. systems have had successes doing that. But I don't think that the Canadians are going to be able to shoot them down. Let's just put it like that. I don't think the Canadians will have much success. We need to be concerned about what's going on over there. And like I said, nuclear war is survivable. If they attack nuclear targets inside the United States, this will have dramatic implications for us. If you're near any of these sites, then you should be aware of radioactive fallout patterns potentially. You should be concerned about like how to shelter in place in an effective way. Make sure that you understand how far you need to get away from the walls and if you can get underground, get underground. All these tips and tricks. Do you have food and water stored up so that you can stay inside while the radioactive half-life makes the radioactivity drop dramatically very quickly? I think that that's all very important stuff. And I think what we need to do is we need to brace ourselves for the inevitability, like they were in the 50s and the 60s. People realized that nuclear war was a possibility, and they even consider it almost an inevitability, right? And I think that we need to get back to that thinking because we have nuclear weapons. A bunch of countries have nuclear weapons, and they're going to use them sooner or later. Sooner or later, we're going to see a mushroom cloud, and it's going to turn out to be an actual mushroom cloud. Now, it's my conviction that when we see a mushroom cloud, we're going to see a whole bunch of them. We're not going to just see one and then we're going to slowly escalate. There's going to be a whole bunch of them. And we need to be bracing for this possibility, for this probability. And we need to realize that we're probably going to be on short end of the stick. I could be wrong on that. Hopefully I am. But our nuclear forces, which are under the command of that guy in Washington, are they going to be able to stand up to a combined strike, a surprise attack, potentially from weapons launched within the United States or within the coastal waters of the United States? There could be cargo ships inside the United States or submarines within our within our waters that launch. And if that's the case, there's going to be even less warning. I don't mean to scare you, but I want you to be prepared. I want you to be awake. These things are very real. The military does not look at weapons and go, oh, well, we just can't use that. No, they're always looking, how can we use this? How can we use this? How will our enemy use this? If we don't use it, will our enemy use it? And usually the understanding is, yes, our enemy will use it. So we need to use it better. In all of the engagements planning, the United States was planning on using nuclear weapons against Russia. If Russia launched a massive tank attack across Europe, we were planning on using nukes. If Russia launched a major aerial attack on U.S. carriers, we were going to use nukes. If they launched major aerial attacks on the continental United States, we were going to use nukes. If they launched ballistic missiles against the United States, we were going to use nukes. We were going to use nukes all over the place. And if you think that suddenly our military is not going to use nukes, there's a reason why we have them. It's to use them. And any large-scale military action, we will see these deployed. And we're moving into large-scale military action. Brace yourselves, friends. All right. Thanks for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report out.